The alien woman returned after years, because one human stayed in her soul. The colony of Erythra 9 lay at the edge of human-explored space, a small cluster of domed settlements under the pale green light of its sun. Beyond the domes stretched red deserts, jagged mountains, and deep canyons that no human had fully charted. It was a harsh world, yet humans thrived here, stubborn as always. The colonists had built their homes, their labs, their small farms, an island of life against a wild, unwelcoming planet. In the center of the colony, Captain Eric Venn stood on a high observation platform, staring at the horizon. He had done this countless times over the years, watching the twin suns rise and fall, but today the emptiness felt heavier. It had been 7 years since Lysera had left. Lysera, the alien woman who had appeared in the colony without warning, without explanation, and yet left an impression that no human could forget. She was tall, taller than most humans, with skin that shimmered faintly like liquid silver under the sun. Her eyes were deep violet, almost hypnotic, reflecting a mind that was older, faster, and wiser than any humans. But it was her voice that humans remembered most. Soft, melodic, yet commanding. When she spoke, even the most stubborn colonists listened. And when she laughed, Eric remembered vividly how her laughter felt like a sudden warmth in a cold room. Lysera had come to Erythra 9 years ago as part of a mission from her people, a species humans only knew as the Elurians. They were mysterious, impossibly advanced, and governed by rules humans could never fully understand. The Elurians could traverse the galaxy almost at will, manipulate energy, and perceive time in ways that seemed like magic. Yet for reasons no human could comprehend, Lysera had chosen to spend months among the colonists, learning, observing, and, most surprisingly, bonding with Eric. Eric shook his head. 7 years, 7 long years, and still he could feel her presence in the quiet moments. In his dreams, she walked beside him across Erythra's red sands. In his thoughts, she whispered advice, guidance, even warnings he did not fully understand. It had all ended suddenly. One morning, Lysera had vanished. No announcement, no farewell. The colony awoke to find the observation dome empty. Only her personal device remained, a small orb of glowing crystal that hummed faintly. Eric had chased every signal, traced every path, but the trail went cold. Her species' technology was far beyond human tracking. The colonists were uneasy. The leaders of the settlement demanded explanations, but Eric had none. Some whispered that the Elurians had taken offense at human stubbornness, that she had gone to report them as naive or unworthy. Others said she had simply grown bored. But Eric refused to accept that. He knew better. Eric walked down the observation platform steps and entered the colony's main hub. The hub was buzzing with its usual activity. Engineers adjusting solar panels, scientists analyzing soil samples, children playing in zero-gravity recreation chambers. Life went on. Humans adapted as they always did. But to Eric, the world felt emptier, quieter, as if a part of the universe had pulled away and left a hollow space. He made his way to the laboratory where he and Lysera had spent most of their time together. The room smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Alien symbols decorated the walls, etched during Lysera's stay, patterns humans could not fully decipher but that Eric sometimes traced with his fingers, trying to remember her touch. On the main table lay one of her devices, left behind in her absence. It pulsed softly as if alive. Eric crouched beside it, placing his hand on the smooth surface. "I know you're out there somewhere," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll find you no matter what it takes." He had devoted himself to studying her work, learning from it, even though others warned him it was dangerous. The device was a quantum translator, able to interpret signals beyond human perception, to communicate across light years almost instantly. To Eric, it was more than technology, it was a link to her. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. He studied, experimented, and observed the device constantly. And slowly, quietly, humans began to notice changes in him. He became sharper, faster, more intuitive. He anticipated problems before they arose, solved engineering challenges in ways that baffled even the most experienced scientists, and always seemed to know the correct course of action in emergencies. Some whispered about the influence of the alien woman. Others joked that he had simply gone mad. Eric didn't care. In his heart, he knew that Lysera had left a part of herself with him, though how or why he could not explain. The colony faced its own challenges too. Earthra 9 was remote, harsh, and dangerous. Sandstorms could erase settlements in hours. Alien wildlife, strange, serpentine predators prowled the deserts at night. Resources were limited, but humans endured. They always endured. And Arik, inspired by what he had learned from Lysera, pushed the colonists to do more, to explore farther, to innovate. One day, while testing a new atmospheric sensor, Arik detected a faint signal. At first, he thought it was interference. But as he focused, the signal sharpened, pulsing with a pattern he had not seen before. It was different, organic, conscious. He rushed to the observation platform, his heart hammering. The suns were low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the red sands. And then he saw it, a shimmer in the distance, a figure moving against the landscape, impossible in its grace. Lysera. He blinked, certain he was imagining it, but the figure became clearer, unmistakable. Her silver skin gleamed faintly under the sun, and her violet eyes seemed to glow with recognition. She was back. Arik's mind raced. She should not be here. Elurians did not travel casually between systems. And yet here she was, walking across the desert, coming toward the colony. The colonists gathered, staring in awe. Whispers spread. Is it really her? How did she return? What does this mean? Lysera paused at the edge of the colony, surveying the settlement. Her gaze landed on Arik, and for a moment time seemed to stop. She spoke, and her voice carried across the distance, soft but commanding. Captain Ven, she said, I have returned because one human stayed in my soul. Arik felt a shiver run down his spine. Her words were simple, yet heavy with meaning. He took a step forward, then another, until he was running toward her across the red sands. Every memory of the past years surged within him, every lesson, every laugh, every whispered moment. She did not move toward him immediately. Instead, she watched, studying him as if reading his very thoughts. Then slowly she extended her hand. Do you remember what I taught you? She asked. I remember everything, Arik replied, breathless. I never forgot, I never stopped trying to be worthy. Her lips curved into a faint smile, almost human, almost tender. Good, she said, because the galaxy is about to test you, all of you, and I cannot help directly, but you humans, you might just succeed where even my people cannot. Arik's heart raced. Questions surged in his mind. What test? What danger? Why him? Why now? But he did not speak them. Somehow he understood that words were not needed yet. The truth would reveal itself in time. Lysera turned, gesturing toward the horizon. There is little time, you must prepare. Your people, your colony, they will need every bit of ingenuity and courage you possess. And you, Captain, must lead them. The colonists watched, some fearful, some amazed, as the figure of the alien woman seemed to glow faintly under the setting sun. For 7 long years they had believed she was gone forever, and now she had returned, not for them, but because of one human who had left a mark on her soul. Arik felt a strange calm settle over him. Fear, excitement, wonder, all mixed together, but beneath it was certainty. Humanity had always survived. Humans had always adapted. And now, with Lysera back, guiding them, perhaps for the first time, humans would face the galaxy not as a vulnerable colony, but as something stronger, something unexpected. The night fell over Earthra 9, stars blinking faintly above. The colony was alive with nervous energy, preparing for what was coming. And in the quiet of his quarters, Arik studied the device Lysera had left behind all those years ago. It pulsed softly, as if aware, as if waiting. He whispered to himself, half in hope, half in resolve, We're ready, Lysera. Whatever it is, we can face it, together. And somewhere far beyond the colony, Lysera felt it too, his resolve, his courage, the essence of humanity. A warmth stirred in her alien soul, and for the first time in centuries she allowed herself a small, human-like hope. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. The dawn on Earthra 9 brought a strange stillness. The twin suns rose slowly over the red horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the domed colony. Humans moved with a mixture of nervous energy and awe. 7 years had passed since Lysera's disappearance, and her sudden return had unsettled every colonist, from the youngest child to the oldest scientist. Captain Arik Ven strode through the hub, his mind focused yet restless. He could feel the hum of energy around him. The colony itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Lysera had not yet entered the main settlement. She had remained at the edge of the desert, observing from afar, as though measuring every detail before stepping fully back into human life. Arik had learned to read her presence over the years. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he could sense it. The shimmer of energy in the air, the faint pulse that seemed to echo her thoughts. He knew she was thinking, calculating, weighing him, the colony, and something far larger than any human mind could yet comprehend. He approached her cautiously. "Lysera," he called, his voice steady though his heart raced. "You are here. I don't understand why, but we are ready." Lysera's violet eyes met his, glowing faintly. "You are ready, yes," she said, her voice soft but resonant. "But not the colony. Not your people. They will need guidance." Eric nodded. "Then let me help them, show them what we can do." She paused, studying him again. "Captain, the galaxy is in motion. Forces you do not yet perceive are moving toward you. I cannot intervene directly. My people are bound by laws older than your son. But you humans, you can act in ways my people cannot predict." Her words sent a shiver through Eric. Humans were always underestimated by the galaxy's older species. They were unpredictable, emotional, chaotic, and stubborn, and yet perhaps those very traits could become humanity's greatest strength. In the hub, colonists gathered, whispering among themselves. Some looked at Lysera with fear, unsure of her intentions. Others felt awe, remembering the warmth, wisdom, and brilliance she had once brought to their lives. But one thing was clear. The colony now faced a choice. They could continue life as before, or they could prepare for something far greater than themselves. Lysera finally moved toward the hub, each step purposeful, her silver skin reflecting the rising suns. "Your world," she said, "will be tested. A force is coming unlike anything you have faced. Planets will fall, systems will be consumed, and only the unpredictable strength of life itself can resist it." Eric swallowed hard. "Then we'll resist, whatever it takes." Lysera's gaze softened. "Yes, Captain, that is why I returned, because one human stayed in my soul. And that human is you," the colonists murmured in confusion. "Stayed in her soul," one engineer whispered. "What does that even mean?" Lysera looked at the group and spoke with quiet authority. "Humans are remarkable. Even when separated, even when forgotten, your spirit leaves marks. The courage, the empathy, the creativity of one being can ripple across the stars. Captain Venn left a mark upon me, and because of that, your species now has a chance." Eric felt a strange warmth, almost like pride mixed with fear. The galaxy was calling, and humans were at its center, not because of power or advanced technology, but because of their hearts and minds. Lysera led him to a separate chamber in the hub, one he had not entered since her departure. The room was filled with alien technology, faintly humming, pulsing with energy as if alive. She gestured at a large console. "This is a navigator, Captain. It can read patterns of energy across light years. You will see the movement of the threat approaching." Eric moved closer, his fingers brushing the surface. A holographic map unfolded, stretching across the room. Red lines, pulsating like veins, crawled across the galaxy, moving toward Earthra 9. Stars blinked out as the red lines passed, systems consumed. It was a swarm, an intelligent, unstoppable force that destroyed everything in its path. He swallowed hard. "We have to stop it." Lysera shook her head. "No one can stop it directly, not even my people. Only humans, by using ingenuity, intuition, and courage, can it be slowed or redirected. You will need to adapt, Captain, and teach your people to act in ways that the universe does not anticipate." Eric nodded. "Then we'll adapt, we'll fight, we'll survive." For the next several days, Lysera stayed at the edge of the colony, teaching Eric and a small team how to use her technology. She did not teach in ways humans would expect. There were no step-by-step instructions, no manuals. Instead, she offered challenges, puzzles, and scenarios. Eric learned to think in new ways using intuition, creativity, and unconventional logic. Colonists watched in awe as Eric applied these lessons. Ordinary engineers designed devices to manipulate energy flows, redirect solar winds, and create protective fields around the colony. Scientists discovered patterns in the desert storms that could be harnessed to generate power. Even children contributed, their curiosity and imagination offering ideas that no adult had considered. Lysera observed quietly. She recognized something the humans themselves had not yet realized. Their unpredictability, their emotional intelligence, and their ability to improvise were unique. They could do what the galaxy's older species could not. One evening, Eric stood on the observation platform looking at the horizon. Lysera joined him, her silver form glowing softly under the twin suns. "Captain," she said, "do you understand why I returned?" "I think so," he replied. Not to protect us directly, but because humanity can rise to the challenge in ways you cannot. Yes, Lysera said, and because you stayed in my soul, your courage, your stubbornness, your determination, they have influenced my people's perception of humanity. That influence may give you an advantage. Eric felt a shiver run down his spine. He had always known humans were underestimated. Now he realized just how much that underestimation could work in their favor. The next day, a scout team reported a strange phenomenon in the sky. A shimmer of black and silver, moving faster than any known ship approaching Earthra 9. Lysera immediately recognized it. "It is beginning," she said softly. "The first wave of the threat. You must lead your people, Captain. Trust in their abilities, trust in your instincts, and trust in yourself." Eric rallied the colonists. "Listen," he said, standing on a raised platform. "We have faced dangers before, but this is different. A force is coming that will test everything we are. But we will not fail. Not because we are the strongest, not because we are the fastest, but because we are human. We think, we adapt, and we will survive, together." The colonists cheered, their fear mingling with determination. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, and even children prepared in whatever way they could. Supplies were organized, shelters reinforced, and experimental devices tested under Eric's guidance. Lysera watched, a faint smile on her face. Humans were messy, chaotic, emotional, but they were alive, and that liveliness was their strength. As night fell, the first hints of the approaching threat appeared as tiny, dark specks in the sky, moving with eerie precision. The colony's sensors hummed frantically, trying to analyze, measure, and understand. But the patterns were unlike anything the humans had ever seen. They were organic, yet mechanical, intelligent, yet alien. Eric felt a thrill of both fear and excitement. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "The test begins." Lysera placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, Captain, they will try to predict your actions, to anticipate your moves, but you and your people are unpredictable. You can survive. You can even turn the threat into an opportunity. Trust in that." Eric nodded. "We will not fail. Humanity never fails." Lysera's eyes softened. "Then let us begin. But know this, what comes next will demand everything you have, your courage, your creativity, your compassion. And above all, your unity. If humans can remain united even when fear grips the heart, you will endure." The night deepened, and the stars above Earthra 9 glittered faintly. The colony was alive, ready, and waiting. And somewhere beyond the edges of perception, a force moved, relentless, consuming, and intelligent. The galaxy's test had begun. For Eric, Lysera, and every human on Earthra 9, the journey was only beginning. They were about to discover that the strength of humanity was not in weapons, not in speed, not in numbers, but in the spark of life itself, unpredictable, untamed, and endlessly resilient. And in that spark, Lysera saw a reflection of the human who had stayed in her soul all those years ago. The battle of wits, courage, and survival was about to begin. The red sands of Earthra 9 seemed to glow under the twin suns, but the glow could not warm the tension that gripped the colony. The sensors were screaming, blinking frantic warnings. For days, Captain Eric Venn had monitored the approaching force, a swarm unlike anything humanity had faced. Yet nothing in simulations or tests could fully prepare him or the colonists for what they were about to see. It began as a shimmer on the horizon, like heat waves rising from the desert. The first scout ship sent to intercept it returned with only fragments of data. Instruments melted or failed, cameras went blank, and every measurement indicated something impossible. The swarm did not follow ordinary physics. It moved, grew, and adapted faster than any human technology could track. Eric stood on the observation platform, staring at the approaching mass. Lysera stood beside him, her violet eyes calm, almost serene. "They are not machines in the way you understand," she said softly. "They are intelligent, evolving, and relentless. Your weapons will not stop them. Only your minds, Captain, only your creativity and unpredictability." He clenched his fists. "Then we fight with what humans always have, ingenuity, courage, and unity." The colonists had spent weeks preparing. The engineers had reinforced shelters and created experimental energy fields. Scientists had designed devices that could manipulate localized energy flows. Even the children had contributed, suggesting creative solutions that adults had initially dismissed. Every human in the colony had been part of the preparations, Yet the enormity of the threat left no one fully confident. The first wave of the swarm hit at dusk. Shadows fell over the red dunes as the swarm descended. Its shape was shifting, organic yet mechanical silver strands intertwining with dark matter, moving in synchronized patterns. Instruments registered it as a single, massive entity capable of splitting into smaller units at will. Arik barked orders. Activate the energy barriers. Keep the scouts away from the outer perimeter, and remember, adapt if the plan fails. Think creatively. Humans rushed to their stations. Engineers powered up energy fields that shimmered in blue and gold. Scientists monitored the swarm, noting its adaptations and trying to predict its next movement. Soldiers manned defensive positions, though Arik knew conventional weapons were almost useless. The first clash was startling. Small drones of the swarm approached a settlement dome. Humans expected to repel them with force, but the swarm did not act like ordinary attackers. When laser grids hit it, the swarm changed form, flowing around the barriers, dissolving and recombining. It was intelligent, responding to every predictable strategy. Arik's mind raced. Predictable patterns won't work, he shouted. They're learning from us. We need to do something they cannot anticipate. Lysera's voice came softly through his communicator. Use unpredictability, make mistakes they cannot predict. Humans are clever in ways logic cannot measure. Trust that. He nodded, realizing she was right. For centuries, older species in the galaxy had dismissed humanity as chaotic and weak. That very chaos, their unpredictability, empathy, and daring, was now their greatest weapon. Arik ordered small, random maneuvers. Scouts flew in irregular patterns, sometimes retreating mid-flight, sometimes splitting unexpectedly. Engineers activated experimental energy devices in sequences that were intentionally inconsistent. Humans acted without waiting for confirmation, improvising constantly. The swarm hesitated. Its movements stuttered, adapting too slowly to every unpredictable decision. For the first time, the humans gained an advantage, not through strength, but through creativity. Arik watched the battlefield like a conductor, guiding humans as they improvised, coordinated, and acted in ways the swarm could not anticipate. He realized the truth Lysera had tried to teach him. Human intuition and courage were unpredictable weapons. Despite their successes, the swarm was relentless. Every time a section was repelled, it adapted. Small units recombined, circumvented barriers, and attacked in new forms. Humans began to realize that fighting the swarm directly would not be enough. They needed a strategy that exploited its intelligence rather than opposing it head-on. Arik called a meeting in the central hub. The room hummed with tension and energy. We cannot beat them by force, he said. They are too adaptable, but we can outthink them. We can use our unpredictability to make them make mistakes. A young engineer named Myra spoke up. We could create decoys, patterns that seem logical but are actually traps. We can lead them into zones we control. Yes, Arik replied, and we can use energy pulses that are not constant, randomized sequences that confuse their sensors. They learn from patterns, remove the patterns, and they cannot adapt fast enough. Lysera nodded, impressed. You are using intuition and creativity, exactly as I hoped. But remember, your courage must match your cleverness. Fear can paralyze humans faster than the swarm ever could. The next day, humans put their plan into action. Small decoy signals, randomized energy fields, and improvised maneuvers were deployed. The swarm approached, confident and calculated. At first, it moved with terrifying precision. Then the decoys triggered, energy fields pulsed unexpectedly, and scouts moved in erratic paths. The swarm faltered. For the first time, it hesitated. Humans acted quickly, exploiting every small gap. Drones were redirected, barriers reinforced, and the swarm was slowed, confused, and partially neutralized. Colonists cheered, but Arik knew the battle was far from over. The swarm would continue to adapt. Humans needed to stay unpredictable, creative, and fearless. They could not afford hesitation or reliance on brute force. Lysera joined him on the observation platform that evening. The red desert glowed under the setting suns, dotted with energy pulses and distant sparks where human defenses engaged the swarm. "Captain," she said, "you are learning faster than I anticipated. Your species is remarkable. You are proving that courage, creativity, and unity can rival even the most advanced intelligence in the galaxy." Arik exhaled, watching the distant swarm regroup. It's not enough to fight it directly, he admitted. We need to anticipate it, trick it, outthink it. And we need everyone to work together, even in chaos. Lysera smiled faintly. That is why I returned. You stayed in my soul. Your spirit gave me faith in humans. Your determination, your bravery, and your ingenuity have influenced my people. And now, they may unknowingly favor humanity's survival in ways you cannot yet imagine. Eric felt a strange warmth at her words. Humans had always been underestimated. And now that very underestimation was their strength. The swarm launched a second, more aggressive attack that night. This time, larger units moved together, probing defenses, testing weaknesses, but humans were ready. They improvised constantly, shifting tactics, combining energy pulses, decoys, and mobile units in ways the swarm could not predict. In one daring move, Eric personally piloted a scout ship, weaving through the swarm in erratic patterns, drawing part of it away from the colony. Small teams activated hidden energy traps, slowing the swarm further. The colonists began to realize something incredible. Their unpredictability, their courage, and their ability to adapt in real time were more powerful than the swarm's intelligence. Hours passed in tense combat. Humans worked tirelessly, coordinating through improvised signals, using intuition over logic, daring moves over safe calculations. Slowly, steadily, the swarm's advance was slowed. Entire sections were rerouted, disassembled, and neutralized. By dawn, the desert was quiet, the swarm retreating toward the horizon. Humans were exhausted but triumphant. For the first time, they had proven they could stand against an intelligence far older and more advanced than themselves. Eric gathered the colony in the hub. His voice rang out over the room, tired but filled with pride. Today, we did not just survive. We proved that humans are clever, brave, and united. We may face greater dangers ahead, but never forget this. We are capable of more than anyone, alien or otherwise, has imagined. Lysera watched from a distance, her silver form glowing faintly under the rising suns. She had returned not only because of the threat, but because of one human's essence that had stayed in her soul. That essence, Eric's courage, ingenuity, and heart, was now teaching the galaxy a lesson. Humans are not to be underestimated. The colonists celebrated, but Eric knew this was only the beginning. The swarm had retreated, yes, but it would return, adapting further, testing them again. Humans would need to continue to innovate, to think beyond expectation, and to rely on their most powerful weapon, their humanity. As the suns rose, casting golden light across the desert, Eric looked toward the horizon. He could see faint shimmer, hints of movement, and yet a strange confidence filled him. Humans had faced impossible odds before. They had survived on barren planets against predators and through hardship. Now they had faced a force that seemed unstoppable and emerged victorious through wit, courage, and unity. He turned to Lysera. We will face whatever comes next, and we will survive together. Lysera nodded. And perhaps, Captain, your species will begin to understand its true power, not in weapons, not in technology, but in spirit. That is humanity's greatest strength. Never forget it. The desert wind whispered across Earthra 9. The colony had passed its first test. But beyond the stars, the galaxy watched. And the next wave would be even greater, more intelligent, more relentless. Humans were ready, or at least they were learning to be. And in that readiness, in that courage, in that spark of unpredictability, the essence of humanity shone brighter than any star. The colony of Earthra 9 was quiet at first light, but the stillness was deceptive. The night had been long, filled with tension, improvisation, and tiny victories against the relentless swarm. Now, as dawn painted the red sands gold, Captain Eric Venn walked among his people, checking devices, speaking to engineers, and observing the sensors. Every eye in the hub was on him, every human depended on his guidance. Lysera hovered nearby, her silver form faintly glowing. Captain, she said softly, you have learned much. You understand now that your strength lies not in weaponry or raw power, but in spirit, ingenuity, and courage. Eric nodded. Yes, but understanding is not enough. We need action. The swarm will return stronger. We need a plan that they cannot anticipate, something entirely human. The engineers, scientists, and soldiers gathered, leaning over holographic displays and maps of the approaching swarm. The red lines of danger pulsed ominously across the galaxy's projection. Every planet, every system in its path had already been destroyed. Earthra 9 could be next. Eric addressed the team. Yesterday we survived because we improvised. Today we take the fight to them, not with brute force but with creativity. We will use unpredictability as a weapon. Every one of you is part of this plan. Your instincts, your intuition, and your courage are our greatest advantage. The first part of the plan was deceptively simple. Create a network of energy traps that seemed predictable, but were actually random in timing and intensity. The swarm had adapted to predict patterns. Humans would give it none. Engineers worked feverishly, connecting devices across the colony and testing sequences of pulses. Next, Eric had the scouts trained to move in erratic patterns, changing directions at the last second, splitting into groups that seemed chaotic. Soldiers prepared to deploy mobile energy fields that could be repositioned at a moment's notice. Even the colonists who were not directly involved in combat contributed by monitoring signals, improvising strategies, and offering fresh ideas. Lysera watched quietly, a rare expression of awe on her face. She had witnessed countless species struggle and fail against intelligent threats, but humans, chaotic, emotional, unpredictable humans, adapted in ways even she had not expected. By midday, the swarm appeared again. Shadows stretched across the red desert as the first wave approached. Unlike before, this time the humans did not merely defend. They directed, they baited, they played with the swarm. Eric piloted a small scout ship himself, weaving through the dunes in irregular patterns. Small swarms of drones followed him, attempting to predict his movements. But he changed direction unpredictably, splitting and merging with other scouts, leading the swarm toward carefully placed energy traps. The devices pulsed in random intervals, confusing and slowing the swarm's advance. From the observation platform, Lysera's voice echoed in his communicator. "Captain, your unpredictability is effective. They are recalculating. Push further. Trust in your instincts." Eric gritted his teeth, heart pounding. "We're taking the fight to them, Lysera. We're showing them humans are not passive prey. We are a force of life." The swarm faltered, then surged. It adapted faster than yesterday. Some drones attempted to bypass the energy traps, while others probed the colony directly. But humans had learned to adapt faster. Engineers modified the pulse frequencies on the fly. Soldiers redeployed mobile fields, and scouts lured portions of the swarm into zones where the traps could neutralize them efficiently. Myra, the young engineer whose ideas had first inspired Eric, shouted from her station, "Captain, the energy pulses can be combined into a resonant field. It could destabilize the swarm if timed correctly." Eric smiled. "Do it. Trust your instincts." Humans adapt, not just machines. Let's show them what unpredictability means. The resonant field activated, sending waves of energy that disrupted the swarm's cohesion. Drones fell out of formation, recombined incorrectly, and collided with each other. Portions of the swarm were neutralized before they could regroup. The humans cheered, but Eric knew better than to underestimate the enemy. The swarm was intelligent. It would continue to adapt. By evening, the tide of battle had shifted. For the first time, humans were not reacting. They were dictating the terms. Every movement, every pulse, every improvisation was part of a grander human strategy that the swarm could not anticipate. Lysera observed from the observation platform, her violet eyes glowing faintly. She had returned because of one human, Eric, who had left a mark in her soul. That human spark, she realized, was now reflected across the entire colony. Humans were demonstrating a trait that no alien intelligence could replicate: adaptable, courageous ingenuity fueled by determination and empathy. Eric gathered his people in the central hub as night fell. The desert outside was quiet for the first time since the swarm's arrival. "Tonight," he began, "we've done more than survive. We fought back in ways that no one expected. We've shown that humans can not only endure but also control their destiny. This is the power of being human. Courage, creativity, and unity, our spark cannot be predicted, and that is our strength." Lysera stepped forward. "Captain, humanity has proven something remarkable, not through weapons, not through numbers, but through spirit. This is what I hope to see. Your species is capable of shaping the galaxy in ways even my people cannot foresee, and that is why I returned." Eric felt a surge of pride, but also the weight of responsibility. The battle was far from over. The swarm had retreated only temporarily, learning from each encounter. Humans would need to continue to innovate, adapt, and act unpredictably. The following days were filled with preparation. Humans strengthened defenses, experimented with new technologies, and trained for improvisation. Lysera taught Eric techniques to read subtle energy patterns, anticipate swarm adaptations, and coordinate responses that seemed almost intuitive. Every lesson emphasized what humans excelled at: thinking beyond calculation, acting beyond expectation, and facing fear with courage. The next attack came sooner than expected. This time the swarm was larger, more cohesive, and more intelligent. Drones moved in complex formations, testing every weakness of human defenses. But humans were ready. Eric piloted a scout ship, weaving unpredictably through the swarm's lines. Soldiers activated mobile fields that shifted positions constantly. Engineers modified energy pulses mid-combat. Colonists monitored patterns, improvised strategies, and communicated with precision born of desperation and creativity. The swarm faltered, confused by the humans' unpredictability. Energy traps triggered in unexpected sequences, scattering the drones. Eric directed small teams to target vulnerable points, disrupting the swarm's coordination further. Hours passed, tense and exhausting. The humans were not merely surviving, they were taking control. The swarm had lost its advantage. It retreated toward the horizon, fragmented and weakened. The colony erupted in celebration, but Eric did not rest. He knew the swarm would return stronger, more intelligent, and more relentless. Humans had gained the first victory, but the test was far from over. Lysera joined him on the observation platform. "Captain, you have done what few species could. You have turned fear into strength, chaos into strategy, and uncertainty into advantage." Humanity's spark shines brighter than I imagined. Eric looked toward the horizon, where the last remnants of the swarm disappeared into the desert haze. "We will keep it shining, Lysera. Humans are resilient. We adapt. We survive. And we will continue to do so, no matter what comes next." Lysera's eyes softened. "Captain, you stayed in my soul. Your courage and determination have influenced not only me but your entire species. That influence will echo through the galaxy. And perhaps it will give humanity the strength to face even greater challenges." The red sands of Earthra 9 glimmered under the twin suns. Humans had faced an intelligence far older and more advanced than themselves, and had emerged victorious through courage, ingenuity, and unity. The galaxy had tested them, and for the first time, they had proven that their most unpredictable traits were their greatest weapons. Eric took a deep breath. He knew this was only the beginning. The swarm would return, and challenges beyond imagination awaited. But humans had learned a truth no alien could teach. Their greatest strength lay not in machines, not in power, but in the spark of life itself, unpredictable and unbreakable. As night fell, the colony rested, preparing for the next wave. Humans had taken control. They had lit the first flame of hope against the darkness, and somewhere in the vastness of the stars, the galaxy took notice. The spark of humanity had ignited.